Get the Trump question out of the way right away. Do you believe that the last presidential election was stolen from President Trump?
I don't, especially here in Oregon. Biden won by more than 16%, so.
Pretty easy for you.
Pretty easy.
Okay. Assuming that you are elected, what's the first issue or problem that you would tackle when you're sworn in?
Well, the most immediate is something that we see every day, which is the unsheltered homelessness situation that we have here in many of our cities, especially downtown areas. Portland's especially bad. Eugene and Springfield have an issue, as well as where I am. Really, it's everywhere.
Okay. And what would you do to address that problem?
So there's a short term, a medium, and a long term, and I think the most immediate thing you have to do is start cleaning up all of the garbage and the blight. There's a wonderful group that is making headway in this area. It's called We Heart Seattle, and they're doing litter picks, and it's really effective in building that trust, restoring hope to people, and getting building that relationship so that people will accept help. Because right now, what we do is, we'll hand out a flyer and say, if you want help, please, call that number. And it's not effective. We need to get this situation cleaned up. And we got to start with, having a cleaner environment.
So number one is garbage?
Number one is garbage. Number two is, I would like to do something like what happened in San Antonio, where they took all the services, they placed them in one area, they helped people relocate all of their belongings and their stuff to that location, and started delivering services right there on site in a really integrated way. And then the third solution is more permanent. We need to deal with the addiction and mental health issue, and I have a model that's really modeled after elderly care. It's got 3 levels of care. Just in elderly care, you would have a portion that's a closed facility where you'd have your memory care residents. Then you would have assisted living and independent living. And we need to do that for people who are struggling with addiction and mental health and are homeless, and start them at the most secure level of care so they can get the help that they need. They can't just get up and walk away. That they really need to do the work in getting healthy.
So these would be state-funded, state-run, almost mental hospitals?
No, it's not a mental hospital. It's a community-based. We're human beings, right? We want to be part of a community. It's really important for our mental health, and I think that helps in recovery when you're talking about these really systemic addiction issues with alcoholism, methamphetamines, heroin, and we've got to start with the detox first. Get people through that part of the phase, then get them into really residential rehabilitation, and then integrated living, where they can start to build healthy relationships and reintegrate into the community.
And what would you do if at the end of the day there were places for people to go, but folks living on the street didn't want to go, refused to go? Would you force them?
Yeah, I think we cannot have people living on the street anymore. We have to say, look, we have a place for you to go. It's not in our downtown areas, and you can either leave or you can accept the help that we have to offer.
Okay. In the greater Portland area, and I'm sure other parts of the state as well, there's a raging gun violence problem.
Yeah.
What would you do to try and combat that? I know you're not the police chief if you're elected, but what could you do?
No, you have to properly fund our police officers and law enforcement and make sure that they have the resources that they need to be effective. The other part is we have to start prosecuting for property crime and making sure that you've got a city that's clean, that people have pride in, and where that behavior is really unacceptable. You've got to start there. It's really, really critical. And once we can do that, companies and businesses and these downtown restaurants will start reinvesting in our areas like downtown Portland, where some of these things are really raging out of control.
There's been a very progressive movement amongst some of the district attorneys to not prosecute so much. As governor, I don't know that you could change that. They're each elected.
Yeah, we have to change the culture around this. This is about really speaking to Oregonians. I don't think anyone wants to live in an environment where they don't feel safe. It's really important, and we expect that our elected officials are really going to help toe the line for us and really do the necessary work, right? It's not about overly prosecuting someone who shouldn't be prosecuted. It's really about enforcing the laws that we have so that we can have a growing and thriving community.
Okay. And would you use your bully pulpit for that?
Absolutely. That's the job of leadership. And in a lot of ways, people are going to look for political cover. As a Republican governor, there's going to be pushback. But it becomes your responsibility, and it will be my responsibility when I get elected, to make sure that people know where the direction is coming from. And if they don't like it, they can blame me. But we're going to get a lot of stuff done in Oregon. We're going to get healthy again.
Okay. Climate change.
Yeah.
We've seen it here with our extreme wildfires and all that. What, if anything, could you do to help with that issue?
So for Oregon, we really need to focus on resilience, right? When we talk about climate change, we know our environment is changing. It's impacting water supply. It's impacting our forests, and we really need to do the work. So, we need to invest in water infrastructure. We've had a year-over-year drought now that is really impacting our agricultural community. People are fighting over water in a way that they haven't done in a really long time. And we haven't done the work to help bring them along and implement things like, low loss irrigation and implement some of these new technologies. So that's going to be really important. We also need to get back into the forest and thin that forest, right? We have too many trees per acre, and when you have an unhealthy, dried out forest, it leaves it open to more bug infestations, open to these huge fires that we've seen, and it actually also depletes our water tables.
Okay. What is low loss irrigation?
There is, it's where you spray low to the ground. It's, a lot of people are still doing flood irrigation, but we have better technology than that. We can really do a lot with saving water. So it's really doing more and having more productive crops with less water.
Interesting. Graduation rates in Oregon are relatively low compared to the rest of the country. Yeah. Students lost a lot of time during the pandemic. What could you do about that?
Yeah, they do. I think we need to get back to the basics: reading, writing, math, STEM. We need to teach those critical thinking skills. And it starts a lot with helping parents along, right? This is how you support your child. Increasing that student to instructor ratio is really going to be important. And then for high school, I want to put in place a statewide apprenticeship model. Starting in the 11th grade, we would have kids connecting with employers, working part-time, getting credit for the time that they're working. Their classes would be aligned to that area of interest. And the hope is that they graduate with a career path and a trade to lean back on. Even if they go on to college, those skills are skills that those students will use for the rest of their lives. And they're doing this in states like Wisconsin, North Carolina, Colorado, and it's really been great for the workforce and great for students.
All right. The legislature become a little divisive in recent years, and the state as well. You have deep blue, deep red. Yeah. How would you bring either the state or the legislature or both? How would you how would you bridge that divide?
I think it's about aligning priorities, right? We haven't had a strong leader in a long time that is focused on what Oregon priorities are. Things have become much more politicized, and we're building and putting in place policy that's really based on ideology, one-sided ideology, as opposed to sort of what we need to do to bring positive change to the state. So as governor, you represent every Oregonian, right? And it's really important that we hear the voices in rural, that we hear the voices in urban, right and left, and then we find that common ground and we start really making improvements. Education is a big deal. This issue with our unsheltered homeless, people want to live in safe communities. These are things that are not partisan that need to get done in our state.
Thank you. No, I'm just, we have a standardized list so that everybody gets the same questions.
Sure.
And we've pretty much asked all those questions. I'm curious though, coming from Southern Oregon, do you think that you have maybe a clearer picture of some of the challenges in the rural areas as opposed to maybe some of the big city candidates?
I do. I think living outside of sort of the Portland metro area just gives you a different perspective. A lot of times what we see is policy is being developed for more urban environments, right, to solve urban problems. But that policy gets rolled out to the rest of the state. And then when it hits communities like mine and out in Eastern Oregon and Central Oregon, we have to figure out how to work around some of that. And it's very frustrating and expensive. And so I'm a big believer of local solutions, flexible dollars so that communities can use the money that they have in a way that makes the most sense. Because the highly structured type of policies that are put in place, sometimes it's just not applicable, and then you end up wasting money.
How big do you think the non-affiliated voter bloc is this time?
Well, non-affiliated voter bloc is huge, right? It makes up more than Democrats or Republicans or independents, right? So it's the biggest voting bloc we have.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I said the question wrong. I heard it coming out of my mouth going, no,
Okay.
Pull those words back. What I meant to say is, how big of a role do you think that they'll play, maybe you were getting to that, in the election this year?
Sure. I think it's going to play a big role. I think we also have a lot of moderate Democrats that are pretty frustrated with the direction of our state. So in general, in the general election, it's really about connecting with everyone. R's have their base, D's have their base, but we have a lot in the middle that people just want solutions that are going to be effective.
Okay. And are you trying to go after that group?
Oh, everybody needs to. I mean, it's really important for our state. Again, as governor, you'll be representing everyone. And so it's about bringing those practical solutions to the table. We have to come together around things that are good for Oregon.
Okay. I am out of questions.
All
Is there
right.
anything else you wanted to throw in that you think is important?
No, I think you covered a lot.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
good.
All right.
Yeah.
And do you need Cutaways, or did you have any questions you wanted to throw in?
I have one question.
Yeah.
Since you're from Eastern Oregon,
Southern Oregon.
Southern and not Portland.
Not Portland. Yeah.
Not Portland.
Yeah.
This movement to get Portland separated into Idaho and all this other stuff
Yeah.
because people don't feel represented.
Yeah.
What would you say to those people that want to cut Oregon apart, and because we don't meet their needs?
Well, at first, I don't think it's viable, but it's a cry for help. It's a cry to be heard, right? People want to know that they're important. And we have a big state, and so much of the attention is on Portland metro area. And Portland metro is important. That's the window to our state. That's what people think of when they think of Oregon. And to see what's happened in Portland over the last, few years has been really sad, and people recognize that, but they also feel like they've been completely ignored. And so we have to really pay attention to, what's the economy in Eastern Oregon and along our coast? How do we best support economic development in those areas so that they can grow and thrive along with the rest of the state? There's tremendous value that we are not tapping into.
Okay, thank you. I just had a bonus question that I just thought of.
Yeah.
With Central Oregon, huge problem with illegal marijuana production down there.
Yeah.
What are your concerns with that?
We have to really do our job and enforce the laws and get rid of those illegal grows. They are wreaking havoc. We have now a cartel presence that we've never had in the past. We have people stealing water. It is becoming more and more difficult for our legal growers to do their job and to be successful. And our sheriffs and our law enforcement need the resources in order to do that.
So as governor, would you send more down there?
I would. I think it's really important.